The image that I showed in the thumbnail for this video is from almost to the day 8 years ago in January 2018. And it was a turning point in my life as my fitness level. At that point in my life, it was kind of accumulation of stress, two jobs. My wife and I had a restaurant that was just killing our finances. So I was struggling to make ends meet and I needed a second job. So I was getting overworked, stressed out, poor diet, and the weight was coming on. And that had been years in the making. I weighed in that day at 236 pounds. I had had a close call a few nights earlier. I woke up in the middle of the night choking on my saliva like from an infection or something. And it took me a couple of minutes to get out of that. And that was just it. I could not handle that anymore. So I needed to make changes. So I went to this community center where we were in Ontario and took the introductory like 3 month membership, whatever. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna start exercising, clean up my diet. So I did. I reduced portions. I cut sugar, sugary drinks, and all that sort of stuff out of my diet, and just portioned adequately. And there was an interesting thing in there. The fellow who was doing my fitness evaluation before starting anything, he put me through a battery test, like stress tests, going up and down stairs and checking blood pressure and repeating and checking blood pressure and different things like that. And then he asked me to go down on the floor and to do as many push-ups as I could till failure. And I did 25. And he was surprised by that. He said, wow. He said, most people can't do 25 push-ups. And that was a clue. You see, all throughout my life, starting early age, I love sports and team sports, playing hockey, soccer, baseball, ball hockey. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I'll correct that. When you talk hockey in Canada, you talk every kind of hockey: street hockey, ball hockey in the gym, any place where any open spot. And then I got into football into my teens, and so I played a couple of years of organized football. And then after getting out of school, it was kind of like a bit of a break there, but then I managed to get back into hockey. And so a lot of hockey over the years as a goaltender, that's like hit training on steroids, goaltending. And you're in a team sport, so you get the camaraderie and all that. So you just love that. And I could sometimes playing 3 times a week, sometimes once a week, whatever. And also got in a little bit of weight training in there too. So even though I had put on lots of pounds of fat, of obesity, I still had a strong lean mass buried inside of that. And that was my advantage. And so I began my fitness journey in 2018 to lose weight. So I in the gym, the trainer took me around to all the different exercise stations, the machines and that, and just sort of laid out like a circuit that I could do each day. So I did that. And then there was a treadmill. And then he went his way. And I thought, you know what? These exercise stations, I don't want to complicate things. I just want to do one thing only. It's exercise. So I got on the treadmill and I started walking, not running, walking on the treadmill, maintain a good pace. And so I built up a relationship with that walking. So, and this was in the winter time, as Canada's experiences all the snow and in that time of the year, January, February, March, and April. So the gym was convenient for me, and it was just a few minutes walking distance from home. So I'd walk to the community center, jump on the treadmill, and do my circuit for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever. And it was also convenient that in that community center was also the library. So I got a library membership. And with that, I could do digital downloads on my mobile device. So I'd listen to ebooks. Another plus. So this is what I would do. I would spend that time day after day going to the gym whenever I could. And so gradually the weight started coming off consistently. And then once that introductory membership expired in the spring, I looked at renewing, and then the rates were going to be like exponentially higher, regular rates. And I thought, I don't need this anymore. All I'm doing is walking anyway, so the weather's nicer now, so I just walk outdoors. So I continued my walking, get my steps. And at that time, my second job was at Canada Post in the sorting plant. So any chance I had to walk around in the plant, I took it. So from then until the fall of 2018, I had gone from that 236 down into the low 190s. So we're talking a 40-pound drop in 6 or 7, 8 months. And in the fall of 2018, my wife and I sold our home, sold a business. We were going from Toronto to the Maritimes, Atlantic Canada. So we moved down there. I transferred with Canada Post, so I was still active. And then continued there until retirement. And so for the next 2 years, the weight would stayed in the 190s, then up over 200 a bit, in that 10, 15 pound range. And then 2020, we came to the Philippines, 2019, 2020, and then back to Canada in February, March 2020. And this was when other things were happening. And I was at the point where weight had crept up back up again. I was at 211, 213 or something. So I was talking with someone at work at the plant, and I said, yeah, I'm just frustrated. I can't seem to, get beyond this weight threshold. I want to be able to drop down to a healthier weight. And then he just happened to say, have you ever thought about keto? And I said, what's keto? And he explained it to me. And it's basically where you drop the insulin level in your bloodstream by not eating refined carbohydrates and excess carbs, and then your insulin drops and allows you to switch to ketones in your bloodstream. Your body takes the fat and converts it into ketones, a different fuel in your body. And I understood it completely right away, because there was actually, I knew a little bit about this fuel system in the body. I was already familiar with it, so I grasped it right away. So I went home and then I started checking YouTube, finding videos on this subject. So sure enough, I started, the first guy I was watching was Sten Ekberg, If you're watching this channel, you may have already seen him, Sten Ekberg. He's a brilliant doctor out of the U.S. He has a lot of videos, gets into the idea of ketosis and low carb eating. So there was him, there was Eric Berg, among others. So I started getting into this. I started to eat this way. And then I learned about time restricted eating, where you go from eating 3 meals and grazing all day to compress it down into, say, 1 or 2 meals a day, and then you're fasting the rest of the time. So I did that. I moved into 2 meals a day, which I still do today. I love doing that. So I eat my 2 meals in like a 4 or 5 hour window, and the rest of the time I'm not eating. And I was easily able to move back into that. And part of that was because of my lean mass that I've been carrying underneath my body the whole time. When you have that lean mass and you're activating it, the GLUT4 receptors that pull the glucose from your bloodstream and keeps insulin low. It's easy to transition into long periods without having to eat, so you're not hungry. And so, yeah, that went on. And then I happened to transfer from the plant, sortation plant, into letter carrier. And then I was walking all the time. And my weight went from, when I started out, it was like over like what, 211, 213. And then it got way back down into the low 170s and within a few months. So that's another 40-pound drop there. So 136 down into the 190s, down to the 170s. So that you're talking a 65-pound total drop. And since that time, my weight has crept up, into the 180s and then back down. Right now, I'm down at 170 right now. And the one thing I would caution about low carb and ketogenic and carnivore and all of that stuff is that you really have to watch how much protein you intake, because it's a lot of influencers out there tell you got to keep pounding in the protein. It's the most important nutrient, but you got to be careful. And there was one point where I discovered that I was actually eating too much protein and it was affecting my system. And this came out of one blood work. And then once I toned that down, everything's been smooth sailing since. So yeah, that's my story about how I went from 236 pounds to 170. And I'm not a big guy, like 5'7", and I'm fortunate. I had that high lean mass inside, which I still maintain today. I do movement all the time, and it doesn't take a lot of movement to maintain that muscle mass, especially at my age now. I'm 63, so I got to stay active. This is not something that's negotiable, something that is a luxury. Is this a necessity at my age? I have to keep moving and maintain that muscle mass. And hopefully I can make it into longevity, fully healthy the whole time. And that's my goal. And I'm fortunate to be where I am today. So I hope you found that interesting. That's it for today.